All right, so let's welcome Dave.
I'm, I'm not insecure. All right. Thanks, everybody. First, I want to say it's been a huge pleasure to meet so many of you over cocktails or here in one-on-ones or in the hallway or whatever. Hopefully it's been as much fun for you guys as it has been for us. So anyway, again, I'm Dave from the onboarding team. I'm going to talk about security by design. It's the idea that when security works best, works best when it's built into the system and not added as an afterthought. And the good news is our platform gives you a lot of really strong foundation right out of the box. Encryption everywhere, 2FA, brute force protection, and more are already there, and in many cases don't really even need to be tweaked or can't be tweaked. So I'm going to walk you through what's there under the hood and what you should customize to meet your needs. You don't need to be a security engineer to run a secure platform. You just have to make intelligent use of the tools that we have in place for you. So we're going to start with the simple truth that most security failures don't come from missing features. They come from misconfigurations. It's well known in the security field that we have a lot of great tools, but oftentimes, as I'm sure you all know, that humans are usually the weakest link in the chain. We encrypt every byte in transit and at rest. We enforce 2FA. We log every action. But if a permission is misassigned or you make a change to a security setting that's ill-advised, you can cause yourself some issues that you really should try to avoid. But let's see, like folder permissions, key policies, retention rules, session behavior, those are all in your hands, and we'll talk about how to manage some of those here. Okay, so these are the things you don't touch or probably shouldn't touch. First of all, you've got brute force protection. That is built into the platform. There are some rules in place for you. They're tweaked and tuned to what we know to be very effective. Unless you have some governance or policy reasons you need to change them, it's a really good idea to leave them alone. Like I mentioned, encryption at rest, it's AES 256, it's TLS when it's in transit. That's in place. You can't turn it off. You can't change anything about it. Our logs are completely immutable. Everything, like you've heard so many times over the last couple of days, our logs are very extensive. We hold on to them for a very long time, and nothing can be changed on them, which is really great for compliance. And then finally, session timeouts are something that you can tweak, but again, through our research and just experience, we know that what we have in place by default works really well for almost all cases. And I guess I should have done that so you could read them while I talk. All right, there you go. Here's the places where you should take control. This is how your own decisions shape how things are secured, how they're maintainable, and how resilient your environment really is. All right, here you go. We'll start with authentication and identity. Let's go to there. There you go. So password policy, something that's easy to overthink and also easy to overlook. Our default setting for passwords is 10 characters requiring upper lowercase, a number, and a symbol. And for most cases, that's quite good enough. But if you're going to set your own password policy, one thing that many security experts say is that passphrases are usually more secure than a random string of characters. So something like purple dog banana 88 exclamation mark is a very secure password, and more so than, say, a random string of characters, because it's memorable, but it's also really not terribly guessable. One of the things we do on the platform, we store your password security with a one-way cryptographic hash. We can't even decrypt it. You can't ask support to tell you what your password is. There's no way to get back at it. So if the password's lost, all you can really do is use the reset tool. We don't use security questions for one of the things that you see, like oftentimes in your bank, what's your mother's maiden name, where were you born, whatever. Way too many of those things are easily guessable and easily compromised, so we don't use them at all. We have expiration and reuse limits that are something you can configure yourself. Maybe you only want passwords to last for 90 days or whatever, but again, going back to security researchers, not always the best idea, because it ends up with people giving themselves easier and easier to guess passwords just because they get tired of resetting it all the time. You're much better off just enforcing 2FA, which requires that the person is possessing something that they can use to further show that they are who they claim to be. And then, yeah, I guess I covered all of that. Yes, I did. Okay. All right, so let's talk about 2FA. We support multiple versions of 2FA. The highest level, the most secure for us, would be hardware keys like a YubiKey. We use that extensively here at files.com. It requires that you have that key in your possession to get into a system. The next is TOTP, which stands for time-based one-time password. Things like Google Authenticator and Authy and many other systems offer a way to get a TOTP, that 6-digit number or whatever that shows up in your authenticator. We do support SMS, so you can get a code over a text message. We even support it via email, although we have that turned off by default. And again, we don't do security questions at all. Okay, we'll talk about encryption and key management. So as you're probably aware, keys are everywhere in secure systems. We use them for automated server logins, encrypted transfers, script integrations, API keys, SSH keys, PGP keys, and I'll talk about those a little bit more as we go through here. But by default, non-site admin users can create their own SSH and API keys, which in some cases is great. In other cases, you may not want them to do that, and you could shut it off so that only site admins can create these keys. The site admins actually can create keys on behalf of the user. So if you're a regular user and I'm an admin, I can log in, go to your account, create an SSH key for you to use for SFTP, or an API key if you're a developer and you need to be able to run scripts and what have you. One of the reasons to do that is to have somebody who's in charge of the site aware of all the keys that exist and why they exist. So when a user throws an API key into a script, completely forgets it's there, doesn't remember what it's there for, at least you can have a record of why you created that API key. And you know that when that person leaves and you shut their account off, if you have assigned an API key to their account, it's going to go away. And whatever they used it in is going to have an issue. So you want to generate a new API key and put that into the script. So use good labeling, set up your own audit trail so you know what you're working with there in terms of managing the keys. Okay, so TLS certificates, historically called SSL certificates, we assign those automatically to every account on files.com. If you're on the files.com domain, like my company.files.com, we manage that for you, and we reprovision it every 90 days because it's a less encrypt cert. But if you get a custom domain, we can continue doing that for you, or you could do it yourself. So if you have some reason that you need to use a specific certificate authority, or you need to have a specific type of cert, you can do that yourself. You just upload that right in our web UI and manage it on your own. And of course, set yourself some reminders to, so that it doesn't expire and suddenly start showing that dreaded red unlocked padlock icon. So yeah, no matter what you do, whether we manage it for you or you do it yourself, TLS is still always enforced, of course, so everything is still encrypted. Okay. How many of you people know PGP, GPG encryption? You know what that means? Okay, all right. So for those of you who do, then you'll be able to hear us. Maybe other people might be interested in this. This is an added layer protection. So while the data is encrypted at rest on our platform, really anybody who has access to it can get into it and see it. If your partners require that you add another layer of protection, you would use what's called PGP, which stands for Pretty Good Privacy, I believe, and GPG is the open source version of that. So you'll see it used interchangeably on our platform. You can generate a key pair, they can generate a key pair, and we could use it such that maybe they encrypt the file and it gets sent up to us, and you need to decrypt it, send it onto a processing system. All of that can be handled automatically on our platform. And like I said, you can generate the keys, or they can bring them, they can supply them to you. Okay, so key managers. Because we have so many different keys, we have so many different key managers. There's one for each of the types of keys. So SSH and API keys are actually visible if you look on the left-hand side under developers at the bottom. There's an API keys. It's like the last thing, I think, on the left-hand side. You can see every API key that's on the platform and who generated it and what it's used for. The SSH key, again, there's a central place to see all of the keys that have been generated and what they're used for, what users tie to them. GPG keys, again, the same thing. GPG keys are a little different than the others in that they're we use them to apply encryption and decryption behaviors directly to a specific folder based on a key pair. What's pretty cool about that, though, is you can assign more than one key to a folder. So you've got multiple partners who need to encrypt and decrypt going through there. You can assign all of those keys to that one folder, and it uses the correct one for the person who has the corresponding key. So that's kind of a really cool thing that we do. All right. Oh yeah, I guess I should also mention that all the keys that we do support revocation automatically. They support expiration, so that if you only want, an API key to be good for the 6 months that some project needs it, that's great. You can time bomb that thing and it goes away on the day that you want it to. So here's a real world example that I worked on with a banking client. They're a regional bank in the Southeast, and they came to us for a pretty familiar case. They want their people to stop using shadow IT. Who knows what shadow IT means? So shadow IT means that you did this without telling IT. You've created your own process outside of the normal function of IT, which can often lead to issues like you've broken some compliance regulations, or you're doing something that's going to be detrimental to the company, and it's something that IT departments aren't really happy about. Too often they put a lot of time and effort into looking at what are we going to do, what do we allow, what do we not allow, and we want to avoid things like John in marketing opening up his own Dropbox account because he's frustrated that he can't share files in the way that he wants. Well, this bank had that problem, and other customers that we've worked with have had that same problem. So they've decided to lock that down. They need an audit trail for everything that gets shared, and that's one of the things you've learned that we do very, very well. So they wanted to get rid of Dropbox, make it a company policy that if you use Dropbox, you're going to be in trouble. So let's go over here and do it with us. What's great about this is that they connected their Entra. Everybody has to log into that with that. They get 2FA. They get the audit trail. They can expire share links after, nobody can have a share link lasting more than 30 days. And they really got all the controls that you don't get with a tool like Dropbox. So they eliminated all their unmanaged share links and their user-created chaos. Okay, we'll talk about access and ownership. That's how, let's see. Who gets to do what? Right, okay. Let's talk about folder permissions. So if you've looked at any folder, you're going to find a button up here, like a little group icon and a person icon. Click that, and you get to see everybody who has access to that folder. It's a really simple and efficient way to figure out whether the right people are getting in or if there's somebody that you need to revoke that from. So one thing to know is that I think we talked about setting up permissions based on groups rather than individual users. It's a really good way to manage these things and not have something slip through the cracks where a person gets access to something they shouldn't get access to. As a matter of fact, at the platform level, you can set it up so that permissions are only managed via group rather than individual users. And depending on your use case, that may be a very, very good idea. It's definitely a great idea, and it's even better when you tie it into SSO and SCIM. All right, so one thing to note that most permissive access wins when multiple permissions overlap. So if I'm a member of the marketing group and marketing is given read-only access to a specific folder, but I'm also in another group that has read, write, delete, whatever, that one wins out. I get the most permissive access that I'm granted across the platform. If you haven't heard of permission fences, these are actually really handy. This is a way to take, say, this giant thing here. We got this little icon. I don't know if you can tell it's there or not, but the little key next to a couple of these names. Those are the site admins. All right. These are groups. This guy right here, folder access user, ABC support customer. Those are standard users. And let's say that I'm a couple of levels down in the marketing folder, and there's a special project that we want very few people to know about. So we throw up a permission fence, and what that does is it immediately blocks access to everybody except site admins. They have powers everywhere. But I can go back and add in one person who needs access to that, or maybe one manager who needs access to that. So permission fences are a way to avoid having to create a whole different folder tree for a specific project. You get to maintain that nice clean structure I talked about yesterday while not allowing people to get to where they should not be. So again, like I was talking about yesterday again, designing for clean onboarding, offboarding, and growth by doing everything intentionally and having a plan, having a documented understanding the reason these things exist the way they do. All right, so retention is one of the things that you can set at a platform level and at a individual folder level. You can apply them basically, let's say you want, in this case, 14 days retention. After that, the files get deleted. That 14-day expiry is calculated based on the last modified date. So if a file's been on the platform for a year, but people are regularly interacting with it, don't worry about it suddenly disappearing, this thing that you guys really need importantly. Also, although, remember, we do have restore now, which is cool. So yeah, they delete based on that. It's great for inboxes and for transfer zones, the kind of thing where it's the data is ephemeral. It's here, it's gone. It doesn't need to be around for a very long time. Maybe you have an inbox that is receiving files and you have an automation that's automatically copying it to your on-prem server via the agent or to another folder where your staff works on it. But you want to retain a copy, at least for a little while, just in case something happens to this one. Somebody downloads it, deletes it off files.com, and now they've lost it on their hard drive. Well, at least you got it stored in that inbox receiving folder for 7 days. So you got yourself a little bit of a safety net from there. Yeah, so you don't have to do, and you shouldn't have to do a lot of manual cleanup. We want you to automate as many things as you can using the tools we built. So again, as part of that whole documented process, documented file tree and everything, make retention rules part of your plan. This way. Oh, I'm hitting the laser again, aren't I? It's been a long week. All right, there you go. Regional storage. So if you have, how many people work with partners around the world, other parts of the planet that aren't necessarily the US? A few of you. Okay, all right. And you're probably, are you aware of regional storage? The fact that you can store files in a specific place rather than in the US, which is the default? Okay. Let me ask you, what, are you using regional storage to another folder? I mean, another location? No? You are. Where are you storing stuff? In Canada and Australia. Okay, yeah, that's great. So it's going to be either a compliance reason or it's just the locality where a lot of your users are and you want to give them the best speed. Okay, that's the reason to look at regional storage. We have a lot of customers in Europe, and because of GDPR, everything has to stay in the EU. With our platform, that happens to be in Frankfurt. Yeah, in Frankfurt. Right. So we've talked about speed and reliability, and what's nice is that you can do things like set up an automation where certain files come in, and you know that the team in Australia needs these files based on certain conditions. We can have the files copied to that region in addition to being in the US region, or moved, or what have you. So again, all these tools kind of tie together and make these more complex workflows really pretty simple. Click wraps are an interesting thing that we do. If you're, obviously everybody's familiar with agreeing to whatever, or scrolling past 3,000 words in a license agreement and clicking agree. Well, we allow you to have people do that as well, here with Lorem Ipsum, of course. But what's really good about this is that if you need a auditable, traceable record that people agreed to your terms or that they read through a compliance document or whatever before you give them access, you can do that. These can be applied to share links. So if before they even get to a form that they fill out or directly to the share link, they have to agree to the conditions. Same thing with inboxes. And then the last one is when a user logs in for the first time, you can require them to accept this. They won't have to accept it more than once, but you can put it in front of all that. Excuse me. What's cool, you can have as many of those as you want. So if you got a lot of different share links and a lot of different terms and conditions, set up as many click wraps as you want and assign them appropriately to those experiences. All right, so here's another real world example, and I'm going to have to kind of read through this one so I don't get it wrong. It's a clinical research company, and they receive anonymized medical images from a variety of sources from all over the country. They need to go into what are called, oh my gosh, what are they called? Medical transcription, something like that. They're scrubbed of identifying information. Those servers are sitting in their DMZ. So they have customers using SFTP seats to get it into their DMZ. As soon as those are ready, then our platform was told that they're ready. We automatically move these files into their NAS, and then specific ones based on conditions like file names or the folders they came came in from. Those go into a DICOM server. DICOM is a medical imaging service. So we've got this kind of complex thing going on there. And they were leveraging, I think, three different FTP services, and they spent most of their time fixing things that broke. It was a big problem, and they weren't getting good logs, and it was just pretty much of a mess. So I believe we met them at a trade show back in early March, and within a couple of weeks, we had designed this entirely new process that uses modern workflows and modern protocols, and they're very, very happy with what they've done. So, you know, we've done this modern design, you know, technical controls, visibility, regional awareness, permission structure, all of those are much, much improved based on just using the permission tools that we have built in. All right, so let's avoid some pitfalls. First of all, let's see, IP whitelisting. It sounds like a great idea. At the platform level at Files, it's essentially a reverse blacklist. So oftentimes when you hear of IP whitelisting, it's like, I can't get in. I used to be able to get in, but now I can't. Can you whitelist my IP and let me in? So it's basically opening the door. In our case, at the platform level, what we're doing is shutting the door on everybody that isn't this IP. So it's not often a great idea to use platform level IP whitelisting unless you have specific known partners with specific fixed IPs. That would be a great way to do that. But the good news is you don't have to do that at the platform level. You can do that at the individual user level. So if you have a customer or a partner's SFTP service connecting to you, and you know it's a fixed location, and they've got an IP address or a range of IP addresses, a site or a range, whatever, we can IP whitelist that specific seat to use those addresses, not the entire platform. Good reasons not to do that, you know, at the platform level, again, is, you know, if you've got employees and they're all in one location or all in corporate network and you known IPs, maybe that's okay, but maybe you've got some remote workers. You've got people traveling and they're at the hotel on the Wi-Fi, or they're using their own, they have NordVPN or whatever on their laptop instead of the corporate VPN. All of those things play havoc with IP whitelist. So, you know, kind of avoid that. Session pinning sounds great. That is basically like if when I log in from this IP address and I have this browser string, my session will be valid. Once either of those conditions change, I'm going to get locked out. It's not the best way to deal with security. You're much better off using strong passwords and 2FA and letting people in with very specific permissions. So not really the best thing to do, but it's there because sometimes, you know, a customer will require it, and we give it to them. Like I mentioned with user-managed keys, they're hard to audit. I mean, they're convenient for people to set up. They're kind of hard to audit unless you maintain some very tight controls over who's doing what with the keys. Complex automations are, you wouldn't think of these as like a security risk, but it's a design risk, and it could be a compliance risk. So if you chain a bunch of automations together, or you have multiple automations and behaviors on a set of folders, you might end up with one of them overriding what the other one is doing, and a file goes someplace where it shouldn't go, or it expires before you expect it to. So again, like everything else, design with intention. You know, keep a log of what you're doing and understand, you know, document it. Make sure people who are running the platform understand what each of the things they are doing and how they will affect others. All right, one more real-world example. Logistics company I worked with, they needed a cleaner, more secure way to manage their automated B2B file transfers. They use the AS2 protocol, which is often used in logistics and order fulfillment and that kind of thing. And they were doing it with kind of a messy setup with SFTP and a couple of scripts, and it wasn't always reliable. So we set them up where the outgoing orders that were going to be sent via AS2 to their partner were dropped into a specific place on their on-prem. We pull it to the via the agent to the outbox folder for that partner. It goes off to them. What happens with AS2, at least on our platform, is once we know that it is a successful transmission, that file is moved from the outbox folder to a sent folder. So we know by the fact that it's there that it's been verified as correct. They don't want those things to sit in a sent folder. They want them to come back to their on-prem and sit in an archive. So we have an automation that watches those sent folders, and as soon as the file comes back, we're like, we're done. let's move this back to their on-prem and drop it over here instead of here where it came from. We cleaned up a whole big mess they had, and again, they were very happy to see that happen. All right, so bringing it all together. So we give you strong defaults, flexible controls, tools that support secure operations without extra effort, and this is here's the idea behind the whole thing. Design beats discipline. Not because discipline doesn't matter, but you shouldn't have to rely on it. You shouldn't have to rely on people remembering all the rules all the time. We should design a system that makes it so that they can't paint outside the lines because we designed it so well. And that is why you want to be very intentional with all this stuff. Use all of these tools I've mentioned to you, and and trust the defaults. Audit what matters. Avoid complexity traps, and use the tools that we already have in place. Okay, so that is the end of my presentation, and I know you all want to have snacks immediately, but do we have any questions? There's got to be some security questions, and I'd be happy to have anybody from product join me if you want to come up here and fill in the gaps if I don't have the answers, please. Yes, ma'am. Green has a question.
I hate that quiet silence thing, so I love to ask stupid questions, and then everybody else thinks their questions are good, right? So I don't know if it fits your presentation, but it's on the top of my head, and we have to leave by 1, so I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity. One of the challenges that I face, and it's because I just don't want to be bothered every day, right? But the majority of our users of files.com are external to our company. So they're not tied in, they're not SAML, they're not in our Active Directory that when they get termed from AD, they're gone. We don't know what goes on outside. So, I'm challenging Fred and some of your new export stuff for the user groups and things. I want to be able to produce a monthly report that I'm going to send out. One tab is all of our analytics software that we have and what they have access to. The other is yours. But I would also like to notify people when their passwords are about to expire, to remind them, instead of them waiting and say, I haven't been in there in the last month and now I got to get it reset. We got to stop what we're doing to go in and do that. Are you foreseeing notifications or ways to notify people when their password is coming up? Hey, user,
your password is about to expire?
I don't know if it fits your security thing, but it's a security question.
Yeah, Claudio. I know that's been requested. I don't know the status.
Testing. There you go. Drop a note to support. And the more people ask for features, as Vivek and our team have already mentioned, we love hearing from you about what will help you. And the more we hear it, the higher priority it gets. So we've had requests like that. We already have implemented some notifications for other things like your certificate's going to expire, which I know certificate people hate not knowing that. So I know we've had this request. I don't know off the top of my head how many times, but the fact I can't think of it immediately, because our roadmap tends to be 6 weeks to 6 months. We don't think in 6 years. So just drop an email to support. Again, let us know how it will help you, and that'll raise the priority.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm at a conference and oh shit, I got to stop to go do this, right?
Sure, exactly, yeah, right. And we want to hear.
And they're external, so we have no visibility to their world.
And just to clarify, so you don't keep these people in the same AD? It's like you have 2 separate ADs for them?
We don't have them in our AD.
Oh,
so it's an outside company, right? That
but you're creating the accounts in the files.com.
Right.
But you have, all right, so
so their password authentication is the best we can do. Internal folks use SAML.
Yeah.
But we don't have that. So ideally, I want a monthly thing going out to them saying, here's the status of who has access. Here's, you guys are making progress there. But then more importantly, it's like, hey, we told you a month ago, and now here you are a week later, and maybe you find out, I don't need this, take me out of there. That would be real nice to know too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, ironically, we have that second half because we have the bit where the inactive, if you're inactive, we can auto-delete you. But what you want is, you're inactive, we're going to warn you, send an email.
And for financial reasons, they're in here maybe once a month to pull down their invoices, and so they forget, know. And they were on vacation when the email came in. It's for, it'd be nice to be able to kind of, as you get closer, get more reminders and say, we can still reset, but ideally it would.
There's something Claudio just said that's really cool. It doesn't necessarily pertain to what you're talking about, but we have added the ability that if a user is disabled after 90 days of not logging in, if they continue to not log in for X number of days, 30, 60, whatever you want, we just delete. You can delete them completely if you know that you never need them again.
Right.
The only caution we always tell people when they delete customers or delete seats, you lose their logs. So if you need the logs, don't
You don't
delete
want them
them.
to
But
go
if you don't
delete.
care,
Yeah,
clean up your seats.
right on.
But I get what you're asking, those is at least this way you can, instead of them being surprised, because you've given them 6 weeks, they log in on the 7th
delete
week,
a
and you're
user,
like,
delete them.
I told you so, but at least if you've sent the email, you can say, I told you so in writing.
Exactly. Hopefully, even if half of them react to that, we're doing good.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, drop a note. Adam's already hearing this, so as soon as he sees the ticket, he'll go, oh,
He'll
I know
say,
who
oh,
asked
it's
for
from
that.
Tammy, forget it. Thanks.
And you want to filter by user.
Oh, other questions?
You mentioned encryption in the early part of the session. What layer is that encryption? Is it at the application layer? Is that encryption below the application layer?
We have multiple. It's at the application layer, but we have transport level encryption. So everything you do when you connect to files.com is encrypted on the wire. So TLS,
Okay, that's at
SSH.
the transport layer.
Right, but we also support GPG and PGP encryption. So if an encrypted payload is coming in, we can decrypt it when it arrives. And if something needs to go out encrypted, we can encrypt it, the payload, before it's even sent. So it's double encryption. The file is encrypted and it's encrypted in transport. And unknown to you guys, we secretly encrypt everything as we're writing it to disk. So anything you are storing on files.com is encrypted on disk so that we can't see your stuff. Now, the only time that's not true is when it's outside. So if you're writing to SharePoint or S3 bucket, that's outside of our control. We're encrypting it on the way there, but once it lands, it's just there. That's
Okay,
your stuff.
is that in your documentation?
I think it is somewhere, yeah. We have the SSL, the TLS documentation, we have the PGP. So yeah, everything we do is documented. It may be in 3 different places, but short answer is yes, it's documented.
Okay. The other thing you mentioned is encryption at rest.
Yeah, so
Now,
that's under, so we have the PGP docs, we have the TLS SSL docs, and then we have the security and compliance docs, which describe how we handle data. It's part of our SOC 2 and stuff. So those would be the 3 places to look for all the encryption stuff.
Is there a particular
Because,
encryption question that you have?
From what I understand with encryption at rest that's a question that's been asked a lot. So I look for the supporting documentation that you guys may have, because we have data around there, the PHI and stuff like that. But if I'm looking at, when I'm thinking of something encrypted, I can't look at it and read it. But I'm looking at this and I can read it. So when you talk about encryption at rest, is my data that I'm looking at, is that encrypted, or is that something that is under the hood?
So is this a question about like what exactly does it mean to say something's encrypted at rest?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What exactly does it mean to say something's encrypted at rest? It means when it's not being accessed, it's stored in an encrypted form, right?
Correct,
So when you're reading
Because
it,
if I encrypt something with PGP, I can't read it. I can't look at it. I can't
Right.
see it. It's
Yeah.
encrypted. But
At
you
rest
mentioned
means-
encrypted at rest.
at rest
so my
means
document in
nothing's
my mind,
accessing it.
Yeah,
right?
so you've got a file sitting on our platform, and you open it in the files.com office editor,
Yeah.
right? It's decrypted on the fly to show it to you in a meaningful way in the browser, right? That's the only time it's decrypted right there in behind that glass, but the file itself is stored in an encrypted format.
Yeah, so the way I would describe it is if you've done disk encryption, like Microsoft's BitLocker or whatever they call it, and Apple's disk encryption, so it's invisible. You don't notice it because when you
I
double click.
understand what it means, but
Yeah.
I just want some clarification from you, because I'm also want to look at your documentation to make certain it aligns with what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh, so then, yeah. Look at the PGP and the TLS, but look at the SOC 2 and the compliance pages, because we describe about how our data handling, and it mentions the encryption there. But again, it's invisible because we handle it for you. And the point is, if you have access to the data, when you access it, you'll just see the file. But everyone else, well, first of all, they wouldn't have access to it. But if someone somehow got access to it, they'd see gobbledygook. It would just be encrypted rubbish.
Yeah.
I can get that sent to you also. I can send you those docs.
Hi there, Ryan Clanton with First State Bank. With permission fences, those are set at a per user level, correct?
They're a folder per folder.
Okay.
Right.
And will that cause that folder to be hidden, Or is it just they can't access it?
They just can't access. Oh, that's a good question. If you, if it's part of a tree that they have access to and you've fenced it off, can they even see that it's there? Does anybody know the answer to that question? Adam, do you guys know the answer to that question? If a folder is, okay, so a person has access to a tree, and one of the subfolders is now permission fenced, and they're one of those who's blocked, can they even see the existence of the folder?
That would be, I'd have to check the docs.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, he knows the answer, okay.
So, permission fences. I love them because I hate permissions. No, let me rephrase that. I love how permissions are in theory, and then Windows came along. And, okay, who here even wants to know about permissions? Because I don't want to bore everybody. Okay, a couple of people. So, well, first of all, why are you asking about permission fences? Why do
Just
you care?
curiosity.
Oh, I see, curiosity.
Just here to learn.
Okay, let's kill this cat. So here's the thing. In the ideal world, we have permissions, and they are hierarchical because that's the way we tend to think, or computers tend to think. You have a parent folder, and you have children. It's like if I give you permission to the parent, I can see the children. It all trickles down, right? And that's like the way it should be. Then Windows came along, and everyone said, well, no, I want to make exceptions, and I want to have ACLs, and worse than that, ACLs, access control lists. And then someone said, oh, I want to have negative ACLs, which is I want to give permissions, but then I want to cherry pick and take away permissions. And what happened is, again, thank you, Windows, you end up with this horrible mishmash of exceptions to rules. Like, oh, I have permissions except where I don't, and then maybe on a Tuesday of a full moon I'm allowed to see this. So it gets really horrible. So what we've done is, in order for those customers who have these horrible mishmash, negative ACLs that should never have existed in the first place, to migrate their data onto our platform, we invented permission fences that say, okay, permission should be logically hierarchical. If I give you permission, it trickles down. And we also give granular permissions in that you can say, I only give you permission to this folder and no trickle down. So we supported trickle down and non-trickle down. But for these negative ACL guys, we said, okay, if you have this folder structure where you have the trickle down, but now I have that exception and I want to say, oh, thou shalt not enter this, we invented a fence. And what it does is it undoes everything. So instead of trying to be complicated and per user and per everything, we're just saying, hit the reset button. So if you have this particular folder and its children, you can say, I'm fencing this off. And it's clearly fenced. No one outside it can see inside the fence. So it's that folder and its children completely fenced off. Now, admins are godlike. They can see everything. So let's forget admins for now. But users, you've now fenced off an area, and you can start fresh and say, okay, in this folder or in its children, I'll start a new permission. I'll give Bob access, and I'll give Vivek access, and that's it. And the great thing is, if you are really dealing with 20-year-old file systems that have permissions from the 90s in it and God knows what else, you can have permission fences inside permission fences, because we thought of that. So the nice thing is, whatever mess of permissions you've inherited, we can help you out by, slicing off areas and saying, this is a whole new permission, and so is this one, and so is this one. Have as many fences as you like, and it just cleans up all the issues, because you only have to set it once, that fence. And by the way, if you remove the fence, the trickle happens again. So you can, place them and remove them, and it just works out. But it's just what we hope is an elegant way of dealing with these horrible, horrible permissions that you've inherited from, my Windows 2000 system that I updated to Windows 2008, and then Windows 2012, and then my NAS guys tromped all over it, and now I've got 30 years of data and permissions that I need to bring into the cloud.
Was the question, if it's fenced off, can I see that it's there, or is it hidden completely? Was that really the...
You cannot see inside the fence. If you have permission to a parent folder, and there's a fence within it, you cannot see what's inside the fence.
Can you even see that? Can you even see that parent? You can't even see that folder exists. Okay.
Can't even see it. It's just you can't see it. You're fenced off.
Okay.
Yeah. No seeing.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Killed that.
Great. Here's the. Oh.
Yes. For the compliance encryption, it's on the.
Well, yeah, so actually it's our approach to encryption security section in the product documentation. and I'm just going to read it. Once uploaded, every file is encrypted at rest by files.com using 256-bit advanced encryption standard, AES. This is an extremely high level of encryption. As we know, encryption at rest means that any data at rest in files.com, not moving anywhere, but just sitting in the storage, is encrypted, right? This way, if somebody actually physically removed the disk from the place from this data center to another data center, they can't actually access the files. So at rest, in the data center, at the storage level, it is encrypted, and no human can actually go read that. But when you're actually transferring that back into your web interface and trying to view that file, all of the decryption has already occurred before you can actually see that. And the only reason you're able to do that is because you have access control to that file. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, I was given this signal, but go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I'm Ari with Clear West, and we use Zapier,
Okay.
and we had to give them full admin permission at the time of setup. Do you know if that's changed, or is there a way to block that access?
You use an API key to give it
Yeah.
access? Okay. All right, so if you as an admin created that API key and gave it to Zapier, then it has the same access that a site admin would. But if for Zapier workflow, you would rather just be able to get to specific places, create a seat that has those permissions and generate the API key using that user, and then it would only be able to get to that one folder and only do writes or whatever you want it to do.
Is your Zapier flow or your Zap doing any administrative actions, or is it just file upload and file download?
Yeah.
Just upload them.
Oh yeah, then just create a regular user account, generate an API key for that account, give it to Zapier, and then you'll only be able to upload and download, and you'll have no admin access.
Okay, thanks.
All right, cool. Thanks, everybody.